Hey there, bros. Was going over the intro while out on the bike this morning. I figured I'd just pull over and knock it out. That's Lake Hodges Dam there behind me. Had just an amazing conversation with Mike Gonzales, who's kicking off his retirement world tour down in New Zealand. And we got to break down a whole bunch of really fun things. Of course, we got way deep into him being the creative force behind all the wonderful social events we got to participate in, including a deep dive on Mango Bango. You get to hear why speaker had to be restrained with a phone cord. Okay, that's pretty good. And if you pay attention all the way to the end, you might just figure out for yourself what beware the shark always really meant. All right, dig in, enjoy this fun conversation I got to have with Mike Gonzales. All right, we are back at it with another episode of It's Not Over Yet, kind of a international Dateline version. Coming all the way from New Zealand, joining us is none other than Gonzo Mike Gonzales. My man, thanks so much for making the time, and thank you too. You're noted as one of the executive producers of the show, and that's for good reasons, because your drunken late night call with Dave Cisneros was kind of the push over the edge that got this project off the ground. So thanks for that motivation and encouragement. And bro, it's good to see you. What's going on over there tomorrow already in New Zealand?
I'm not allowed to tell you. We're in the future, but if I tell you what's going to happen, then it breaks the continuum, space-time continuum. So I'll let you figure it out. It's Friday. I'll give you that. Okay.
Are the Lakers going to win tonight? Should I make that second half bet? Do I need to know?
You're asking the wrong guy. I'm not a basketball guy. I'm doing rugby now.
Of course you are. Okay, we'll go pull for the All Blacks. Let's jump in. I need my third SIGs. I need full name, hometown, and pledge class name.
All right. Michael Lawrence Gonzales, San Jose, California, Fall 87, Lords.
Okay.
We are the Lords of the 1980s.
The Lords of the 80s. Love. That's a great group, man. How about Big Bro, Little Bro, and any offices held?
Big Bro, Simon Atkin Downs, legend. Little Bro, Ted Adams, social chairman, but I can't remember the year I was social chairman. I tried to go back and look. I know I was a social chairman for 1 year, and then I was an unofficial social chairman helping with all the parties and designing and coming up with all the creative stuff.
Okay. Simon, he of the Beware the Shark. Yeah. That all came from him. And was that a complete nothing burger and there was never anything really to it? Because we always tried to figure out what it was, and that was the eternal question. But it was really just don't get eaten by a fucking shark, right? When you're surfing.
Exactly. He was the eternal surfer. He took off. If you're a big surfing guy, you know Mark Richards, the wounded gull, and he modeled himself off to that, and that was his passion. He taught me to surf, and yeah, that's just kind of a thing that came after him. Yeah. He has. We could tell some stories about Simon later, but
okay.
He's the guy, dude.
he was a great dude. I remember very, very fond memories of Simon.
Yeah.
Where were you when you found out about San Diego State? Was it your first choice? Was it the pick of the litter for you coming out of high school?
So yeah, it was actually. I only applied to 2 schools, San Diego State and San Jose State was like a backup. I ended up not going to San Diego State at first. My parents had told me, hey, any school you get into will help you go to that school. And then when I said, all right, I'm going to go to San Diego State, because I had a bunch of friends from high school that were going, so they kind of pulled the rug on me. And so I went to San Jose State for 2 years. I hated it, dude. I hated commuting. My brother ended up quitting school. I have a twin brother. He ended up quitting. He hated it so much. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm living on my own. I'm paying for everything on my own. Why don't I just transfer to San Diego? And I did. High school buddies of mine were Brian Marshall and Eric Koppemeyer.
Okay.
And I ended up moving in with them. And that's how I met Simon. He was their roommate. They didn't tell Simon I was moving in. He had another roommate. I think I want to say he went to jail for bank robbery or something like that. And so I just showed up with all my stuff, and they said, oh yeah, by the way, this guy's moving in. And he ended up becoming my best friend in college. And it ended up being amazing. But that's how I ended up at San Diego State. It was literally just roundabout way. Yeah.
And those 3 guys were responsible for rushing you and probably the motivating force for you to get into the house?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to sound terrible, but I had no intention of rushing a house. They just said, hey, come to our parties. We're already active, so you could just come party for free. You don't have to worry about it, doing any of the stuff, and just hang out with us. You're just automatically in. And I'm like, cool, sounds good. So hanging out, having a great time. And then a couple guys pulled me aside into the president's room, and then they said, hey, we want you to bid the house. And I'm like, sure. And then in the back of my mind, you think about all the stories about hazing, and I was 20 at the time. So it wasn't like my first rodeo in life. So I figured I'll do this until someone F's with me, and then then I'm out of there because I'm not putting up with anything, you know. But yeah, I got my bid. In fact, I think I sent you a picture. I found the actual bid letter and my caduceus and my pledge pin. So yeah, that's how I got in there, and then I just kind of rolled with it, and just best thing that ever happened to me ever. It was just this happy accident rolling through life. And I remember at the pledge parties going, "Hey, you excited to pledge?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just here for the free beer and hanging out. I'm hanging out with my roommates, you
There
know?"
you are.
Exactly, right? Yeah, and look where it took us.
We got another one. We got another one.
Yeah.
Who do you remember standing out from your pledge class early on like that? Who are some of the personalities that you remember like right away that you clicked with?
In the pledge class?
Yeah, in your pledge class.
Oh, I mean, just I'll have to rattle off the list. I mean, just so many guys that I clicked with. I think, we talk about, you can tell someone in business if they played team sports and they get it and they understand how to work with people. Chris Saito is probably the biggest one. Like I remember going to parties with that guy like at college, just a college house party in the backyard. "Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, from Long Beach." "Oh, do you know so and so?" I started calling him the Encyclopedia Man. This is like when I first met him. And I mean, obviously today he's still that guy, but just blown away by the connections. And then, like Mark Rago, Charlie Sheridan, Mike Crisp, Jack Colson. I mean, just down the line, JR. I mean, like all the guys that you think of the Lords, they're just awesome. I had so much fun with those guys. Matt Hamilton, Randy Gray always used to say, "Dude, I'm getting sick of looking at the back of your neck," because he was behind me in line, all the time when we lined up and stuff. But just guys like Randy knew everything about music. Like, who is the lineup for Journey? Who, he'd tell you stories about how he met these famous musicians in San Francisco. And I'm super into music. Eddie Chapin, king of the DJs, dude. So many good memories of him DJing at the end of the night. And yeah, like I said, dude, it's just awesome. Just down the line, just too many to list just to go do into details.
That Lord's pledge class was powerful for so many reasons because they came in and you guys were so strong and so big, and also came in at a time where this rise in popularity around us was really starting to take off. And you guys added to that in numerous ways. One of the more important ones was sports. There were so many good athletes in that class and the class before and after, and yourself included. Was that an important factor in that? And then you fit in right away. You made that football team better just by showing up to practice,
For sure. I mean, I think about it. It's like, Ritchie was quarterback. We had one or two other people that, like, I think Lumpy, he came a little bit later, but he like him and then McGrory, dude, like outside of that, you had wide receivers that were Lords. Me and Saito played secondary linebacker, just owned it. I mean, we dominated, dude, and felt so good because I loved playing football in high school, and just to be surrounded by people at that level was exciting. I remember Colson was a great wide receiver. Fucker was like skinny and in shape, and then like he'd be like, "Oh, I'm so full," and and his little belly sticks out, dude. Then he puts on his cleats and just all over. We were good, dude. There's no way to say it, dude. We were good. And then like Adrian on soccer, we had great soccer players too that were on the team. We had just a lot of athletes. And I think, again, going back to that team sports vibe, just the fact that we all were on a team and knew how to work together and play together and the different personalities, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Was there a fight? Was there a soccer fight that kind of took off on the field and then worked its way up into the stands? And was it Sigma Nu? I might be a little foggy.
I think it was Sigma Nu. I wasn't on the field. Soccer wasn't my jam, but I was in the stands, and it was one of the few fights that I didn't start or get too involved in. But yeah, something happened on the field, and it just kicked off, dude. I'm not proud of it now, but at the time, I was quick to hop in and do that stuff and just, like stand up for what I thought was right. And I was kind of like secretly proud of the fact that these are my bros, dude. They just get at it. No wimping around, So yeah, it was a big brawl, dude. It kicked off.
You also brought to the house a wave of new creativity and energy, that the class, but you in particular. And you became, I think, in the minds of a lot of people, the driving creative force. Again, at a time when we really needed it and we were taking off and all that. How fun was that for you to get to do what you're good at and apply it towards something like this, making a group of 100 plus college kids psyched and fired up about the party and the creative direction for the party and everything like that.
It was like a dream come true for me. It's like, hey, you're got to come up with a theme for a party. You got to come up with some decoration ideas. I'm like, dude, that was so in my wheelhouse. Designing T-shirts, drawing the skulls and the caduceus, and like just all the T-shirts that I wish I would have saved those. I remember I had them for a while, and I'm like, dude, there's just a bunch of old T-shirts in there. But this is back before we had Adobe Illustrator and all that stuff. These are all hand drawn and taken to the printers, and just some killer shirts that we made. I don't know if you remember the black ones that we did, the tank tops for the volleyball tournament. Like, I was really proud of those. I thought those turned out really cool. Stupid stuff, the offset, letters, and just, how we did it all. And then the parties, man, just coming up with the themes of the parties. We had one party, it was around the world in 80 days with Kappa Sigs. It was like a Kappa Sig Airlines. We rented a limo. We had like guys dressed up in like airline pilots. Every room was a different country. We came up with this idea of having passports. So you'd have to do a drink in a different country, get your passport stamped. We had guys that were like the Gestapo walking around, or whatever you want to call them, secret police. I don't know if that's the proper term now, but they check your papers. And if you didn't have your stamps, you got sent to Siberia, which was in the pit. And we were serving White Russians, and it was like it ended up being the VIP room. Everybody wanted to get down there. I think Dabo mentioned that he, on one of our calls, that he ended up having to go before IFC explain himself for that party. But man, I was so proud of that. We did Western themed parties, and we came up with wanted posters for all the bros. Kenny White, he became Spitting Dog because we came up with a Kenny Spitting Dog White that was his wanted poster. And then I think they called me Gila, because it's supposed to be Gila with an H, but we're all, token. I'm the token white guy, so it was just the Gila.
One thing completely for sure stands out in the minds of everybody: Mango Bango.
Oh yeah.
How did that come to be? How did that even come to be? And what are your favorite memories of it? Whether it's the design and the build and the planning, or the execution and kind of standing back and just looking at the whole thing going off, and 300-400 people out in that backyard. Like, what do you remember the most about Mango Bango?
It's everything. Rafael, he was like my partner in crime coming up with the stuff. He was like-minded. We built that volcano the one year, and then I think it grew. We ended up covering the whole back patio and backyard in that camouflage netting you see. Just, we went to town on that, and then building a bridge with smoke, and it looked like you're walking over a river or something. And when you walked into the house, down the side of the house, I mean, it was just epic. And then to be able to sit back and just be like, yeah, we did this. And then, it was like 30 kegs and 7 garbage cans filled with jungle juice, and just, it was epic, and then we rented double-decker buses to shuttle everybody out of there and take them down to the Red Onion. And just like the thought process that went through it. I'm so proud of those parties, man. It's like it's so epic, so epic. And again, I think of life like a movie, right? And like I worked in the entertainment industry with a lot of people that made movies and told stories, and I would almost be embarrassed to tell some of these stories because people would always think we're making this stuff up. Like they just can't comprehend. Like Van Wilder, dude, we lived it, dude. Bert Kreischer, dude, we lived it. I mean, get Cameron Crowe, let's find a good writer, and let's make a movie that would stand up with any of those movies.
You need a character
we lived it.
You need a character that did this and this and this. I got the guy. I know you're talking about.
Yeah. That was epic. I was so happy with those parties, dude. I think those just, people can't comprehend the scope of what we carried off.
No.
You remember Beer King pulling up and then just wheeling in the kegs, and I know that changed, and it had to change, and it's a different day and age for sure now. But man, being a 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid, and then having all that just be your world, right?
And we were really the only ones doing it at that level. Like, we weren't going to other houses' parties, maybe the DUs on a Friday afternoon or something like that. But people came to our parties. We didn't go to their parties,
No, not like that. Not like that. That one was one that I think definitely stood out.
Because it was a date party Friday night, right? Just the house. And then Saturday was the kind of the more open or all Greek party and that sort of thing.
Yeah. We got our return on investment. We got value out of the whole effort that went into it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You send over a bunch of great pictures, and I'm going to drop them in there. There's a couple that you said were kind of related to the cleanup of Mango Bango. They involve some partial nudity on behalf of Kenny White. Why is Kenny always naked? Why? And what the hell happened to that guitar? Did it have to get burned, or did like what happened?
So Kenny was my spirit animal too. He was my partner in crime. We thought we'd leverage Mango Bango's decorations and efforts instead of taking it down and wasting and throwing it away. We decided to do a air band party, and it was going to be an air band competition. So everybody in the house could put their own band together and get up and perform, and then we'd pick a winner and then turn it into a party. And we had our costumes. I rented some instruments from a music store, and Kenny, if I remember correctly, came home super late from a lacrosse tournament. Like literally, like the party had started and he just got off the bus from the tournament. He didn't have time to get his costume together, so he just said, "Fit man." He dropped trow and just got on that guitar and rocked out naked in front of the whole chapter room filled with girls and crowd, and people would just love. Obviously, we did "Earache My Eye" from Cheap Trick, or from Cheech and Chong, and and then let's just put it this way: when I returned that guitar back to the music shop, the guy, is checking everything over to make sure it's all good. And on the back plate of a guitar, they have like a little plate you could adjust the pickups, and there was like his pubes were all like he must have pulled some out and stuck them in that plate there. But yeah, dude, we did some streaking back in the day, running through we're all going streaking through the dorms and through the parking garage, and we were inspired by the doctor. Well, he's Cobra now, but he'd ride his Batmobile bike down Campanile and Montezuma naked past all the sorority houses, dude. It's just legend.
So much stuff that would not be received well today, and rightfully so, maybe, I don't know, but it was
there's a time and place for sure. Yeah.
You had a number of, with that big pledge class of yours and that strong pledge class of yours, you have a number of unique roommate situations, some at the house, and then I know you lived there for a bit, and then some down off a Campanile over by El Conch, right on that side of campus.
Yes.
What do you remember the most? What stands out? What was the most chaotic of your roommate combinations?
Oh, there's tons of stories. Probably one of the craziest moments. And look, we all took turns having our night with tequila and the spinning eyes. But I remember Beaker came home. We all got back from a party one night, and he was just, something set him off, man. And he is just, he kind of was wild man, dude. We, it was Rago, me, Saito. I forget who else was there, but there's 3 or 4 of us there. We tried to talk to him, but he was just in primitive mode, and we had to literally like hog tie him and tie him up with a phone cord. Like, remember back in the day before you have the phone in the kitchen, and then you'd have it all the way that it goes to the bedrooms, and we had to literally tie him up until he could calm down. That was one night. Yeah, I remember coming home from when I lived in the house with Mike Jackson. He was a young buck back then, and he was a sports journalism major. And I'd come into the room and I'd see all his newspapers, sports pages, all like piled up against the space heater in our room. We lived in the room, right? Not the first room from the kitchen, but the next one opposite the bathroom.
Okay.
And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he was like, what? You're going to burn our house down. Just crazy stuff, man. Living with Jason Gordon and Ralph over on, I think it was Debbie Drive. Just like I found out how girls could be a lot messier than boys can. And the house, the kitchen would just be a mess, stacked dishes everywhere. I'd come home and I'd warn them, and then I put up a note, said, hey, if any of your dishes aren't clean by Friday night, they're going in the garbage. And then of course no one listened. And then that night before I went out, I washed my dishes and put them in my bedroom, and then just all the rest of it just went in garbage cans. And then the next morning you're watching these cute little sorority girls digging through the garbage for a cereal bowl, and just some crazy stories, dude. He'll probably appreciate this. He had his piece of his little baby blanket. He called it Bish Bish. And he had a piece that he would take with him to his girlfriend Denise or Nini's house, and then he had a piece that he kept at home. And dude, we would get home from a party and start messing with them and start pretending to put different body parts through the holes, or like that scene in Airplane when I can make a hat, I can make a brooch, I can make a pterodactyl. Yeah, we would do that with his Bish Bish, but it was probably a little bit more X-rated, and he would get so mad at us.
You don't mess with a man's Bish Bish. Everybody knows that.
No, dude. No. But those are again, just movie moments that you can't make up, dude. It was just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a point, like, as an undergrad where you really you noticed it, like, you felt it, you could feel this connection that existed because of this tightness that was going on and how well everybody was just coalescing, and now we're a house of 100, 110 and things like that. Was there a point that you realized that? And then the kind of the dovetail to that is, do you appreciate it now more or just differently than you did then?
I noticed it, I think once I got initiated and I was past all the, the whatever the hoops you had to jump through to become an official brother, because we were already like so tight as a pledge class. I mean, like even if I never got into the house, I know that we would all stay tight. But once I became an active, then it all kind of like, dude, this is awesome. I'm a twin. I'm an identical twin. I grew up understanding what it is to go through life with someone shoulder to shoulder with you, like
Okay.
King Kong Godzilla. I never feared anything, And to me, being in the house was like that, dude. I had guys that I knew had my back. They knew I had their back, and it was just an amazing feeling that stood out. I also went into the house. I grew up in the Bay Area in a 30-mile radius. You live in this insular world, and I think everybody that goes away to school can relate to this, but meeting people that are so different than you, I didn't know people from Southern California. I didn't know that volleyball was a men's sport, that like never knew that lacrosse, they didn't play that up in the Bay Area, I learned so much from all the different brothers, like Jay Colson taught me about Led Zeppelin, dude. That was one band I was never listened to until I went in the house, then rocking out with him, and then Kenny White teaching me about lacrosse, and like Tui was a huge, like he's a quiet but awesome dude in our house, and I learned so much from him about over the summers. He'd go and work all summer, and then he'd go back and he'd take that money, and I'd be like, dude, what are you going to do with all that money? And he's helping out his family, and it's like it gave me this whole different perspective on how people live that are different than you. And like when I was up in the Bay Area and Vietnamese refugees came over, kids in high school would make fun of them. I did too. I was just ignorant, and then you go away to school and you meet these people that are from this vast different culture and background and worlds. You all come together and you're tight brothers, and I learned something from everybody. Colson living in Florida, dude, but we found our love of music, and just, he's just these guys are all guys that if they called me up right now, I'd say, okay, what do you need?
Yeah.
What bail money do you need? What do so I recognized it then. And now, unfortunately with Robin's memorial, Chris's wife passing, and then when we all got together for that memorial, there was like a lightning bolt that struck me, because it's not that I ever took it for granted, but I think after that moment and seeing all those guys there for Robin and Chris and his family, it was like just a lightning bolt from the sky. I go, this is so precious, dude. This is so precious. And it made me, we know, and I know deep down how lucky we are, but just the fact that we had that. And dude, majority of people don't. My brother was in a fraternity. He said, dude, we were never that tight,
Wow.
and just making the effort to go to see the guys and do that stuff. And, like I can say I love you to any one of these guys and not have it feel weird, dude, because it's sincerely how I feel. And I think the older you get, the more you appreciate that. We are so lucky. We are so lucky. And the stories, the experiences, the brotherhood, like you talked on past podcasts about some of the ceremonial stuff. But to me, I was never deep into that, but I get the brotherhood. And again, like I said, being a twin, dude, you get that bond. And we have that. We have that. And a lot of people never get to experience that, even with their own family or their own best friends,
Yeah. It's so ethereal, and it's hard to even put words to what that it is or what that secret sauce is. And that's what's fun about this process, is to try and pull it out and give it some shape and see what it means, because it means a little something different to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best part of it, is that because it's this experience we go through as a group, but it's highly personal and highly individual, because you have to experience it yourself, and
Yep.
and almost define yourself what it means. And through the things like sports and the interactions and those bonding times at the parties and on the top of the double-decker bus, that's when it registers. And like you said, we would die for all these guys. We'd run through a fucking wall if you had to,
Yep.
without any questions asked. And I, like you, we're so lucky in that that I hear that all the time. Dude, we don't have anything like that. I don't talk to anybody back from my college days, my fraternity days. What house was your brother in?
He was at ATO.
Okay. Did he stay at
And-
San Jose State, or did he transfer too?
Yeah, he ended up. Yeah, he quit school for a little while, worked at UPS, realized he came down to visit me with some of our high school friends. down to spring breaks and going down to Mexico and San Felipe. And he's like, dude, what am I doing? I got to get back to school. So he joined the fraternity up there. And in fact, I inspired him to get his fraternity brothers to come down, and they rented a motorhome, and they went down to San Felipe and then drove across to Rosarita and then back up again. And there's a Jack Colson story that he always tells, and I'll keep some names out, but my brother's buddies all had this ATO RV that they drove down, and then we all met out down in Rosarita and had an epic, if you remember the Rosarita
Sure.
parties. And
Sure.
and then Jack hooks up with this girl that we all knew, and well, can we go? And he's like, hey, my buddy's brother has this RV. So he goes in the back of the RV, takes care of business, and he just grabs a sweatshirt to clean up out of some dude's duffel bag, cleans up, peace out. And to this day, Colson still tells that story all the time, dude. Like, we've all heard it a million times, and it's like, okay, I'll listen to it again, dude. Yeah,
one of those doesn't get old. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All through college, you're working on your major, and you had this career in mind in the creative arts field. What were you doing? What sort of things were you working on at State in preparation for all that?
Yeah. So I'll back up just a little bit. I was at San Jose State. I didn't know anything. I was the first kid to go to college in my family. My parents were like, got to be a business major. And I was taking microeconomics as a freshman at San Jose State. I'm like, dude, shoot me now, dude. This is not Mike Gonzales, And my brother quit school, and I thought, dude, if I'm going to work for the rest of my life, I'm going to do something I love. So I literally sat down and go, what would be my dream job? I'm a huge movie fan, and I thought about it. I'm going to do special effects for Industrial Light and Magic. That's what I thought I was going to do.
Okay.
So I found the closest thing to that major at San Diego State, and was designed for TV, film, and theater. So it was like half in the theater department doing lighting, set design, and then half in the telecommunications film department doing movie sets and TV production. And it was a dream major for me. I loved it, dude. You guys were writing term papers, and I was building these foam core models and be like carrying them across campus. And, I think some of my roommates would call me my major cut, stick, and paste. I think Colson was one of the guys that started that. Shut up, Gonzo. You just do cut, stick, and paste, And at the time, dude, I was so poor, I couldn't even pay attention, dude. I mean, like, I didn't know what a trust fund was until I met some guys in our house.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, but that I just stuck to that. And then fast forward, I ended up with this amazing career. I got to develop video games for 10 years, working with Activision, Rockstar, Crystal Dynamics, working on huge games. Then I ended up getting a job making toys, working for a toy company, running the design office over in Hong Kong, and then coming back and getting on the licensing side of the business, making product for, Halo and Call of Duty and, all these great games. So it just turned into this amazing career, all because I stuck to that. Like, people, you hear these people say, do what you love and you'll be successful. I mean, to talk about, like, it was a serendipitous path, but that was it, So it was amazingly lucky.
Were you always that kid in the back of the class in elementary school that was doodling on the notebooks and drawing when everybody else was doing math and English and things like that?
Yes and no, because all my high school was like college prep. Like, it was all like trigonometry and
hardcore, okay.
Chemistry and physics. And my brother and I were like the guys that could hang with the academics, and we were also the football jocks. So we could kind of hang with both, but we weren't allowed to take art classes, and we weren't allowed to do like auto shop or do anything outside of just straight prep. But my grandmother, I credit her with us doing it. She encouraged the creativity from a young age. So when we had that opportunity to do that older, when I'm picking my major, before then I was getting C's, get degrees. And when I got into my major, it was straight A's,
Yeah.
And yeah. I knew I was on track. So it was pretty, once I started that path, there was no turning back.
What was the first gig out of college? Was it right in that pathway? And did the school help you get it, or did you have to go out and grind to find it and do a big
no.
Like that?
Quite the opposite, actually. San Diego State was a great all-rounder school, especially back then. But I remember they had a guest professor from Carnegie Mellon, and he came out. It's a big design school back out east, talking about how the students, before they graduate, they're already like the summers between classes, they're working professionally in the industry. And then by the time they graduate, they're working in the industry. And I remember asking one of our professors, and it's like, no, we don't, that's not what we do. We just teach you the academics and you go out and do it. My first job out of school, I was working at a model shop, like turning a mill, like, turning metal and stuff. Cause I wanted to, if you know anything about like, Phil Tippett and the AT-ATs from Star Wars, the stop motion. So I wanted to learn how to make those armatures and to do all the stop motion and cast parts and do all that stuff. And so I did that when I got out of school, and it was totally like it wasn't what you would think is a trajectory, like a uphill trajectory. It was like a sideways trajectory, but it ended up working out because I learned how to do all that stuff. And then at the same time, I grew up with computers because my stepdad worked at IBM, and then I already knew how to design, graphics and modeling on the computers. My brother got a job in the game industry, and then a month later I got in there, and then from there it just took off. So everything I learned at San Diego State, all the design principles, designing sets and environments and lighting, I could do digitally in the game world. So it was kind of a serendipitous path, but it took us back there.
And we're talking now the middle 90s, right? When video games and that
1995.
technology is absolutely taken off, right? So, like, what a great
Yep.
time to
Yeah.
be coming into it and be one of people on the very leading edge of this thing.
Yeah. My first game I ever worked on was called Mutant League Hockey. It's an old Sega Genesis game, like with cartridges.
Okay.
And that was all 2D pixels, and then they literally paid us how to learn how to design 3D and like AutoCAD and Maya and 3D Studio Max, and then after that it was just off to the races. Yeah.
Did you ever incorporate anything or a person or a personality from the house into any of the games or characters that you worked
Oh,
on?
we used to my brother and I used to, because we worked together in the game industry for about 10 years. We used to always sneak characters and things into like little Easter eggs into the game in the background. Or we built a racing game. It was an game called San Francisco Rush 2049. And we'd have our like Gonzo Racing or Caser. My brother's name was Rick. So it'd be Caser Motorsports, or we'd have pictures of people in the Tower Records store in San Francisco, and we would like sneak little Easter eggs all through in there. So I have a feeling EYB ended up in there somewhere.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned living abroad. That's a unique and kind of rare thing. I've been to Hong Kong a couple of times, and it's an amazing, amazing city. Everybody's got to go there at least once and spend some time. What's it like living there as an expat?
It was. It wasn't the real world, man. It was Shangri-La. My brother and I, we left the game industry in 2004, 2005. You're at work and everybody has experienced this. You got a manager that doesn't know what they're doing, or you always say, you tell everybody on your team, we could do a better job than this guy. And my brother and I, we got bought by Rockstar Games. The Hauser brothers ran a real hard, they would work you 80, 100-hour weeks and just throw stuff away that you're working on for 2 months straight. And we thought we could do a better job on our own. So we started our own company, design company, and we did just about everything. And we ended up with a client that was a toy maker called Wowie. They made the Robo-Sapien robot. We were doing some designs for them, and then they said, "Hey, look, we need you to come over to Hong Kong, but we can only pay one of you guys to go over there." And we were a 2-man team, so we had a bunch of contractors. And then my old boss in the game industry, he took me aside one day and he goes, "Dude, what do you just go, just take it, eat it out of pocket and go and cover the cost, because it's once in a lifetime experience to be able to go over there for consulting work." So we both went over there, and then fast forward, they ended up buying my brother and I out. Well, it's not as a soft close. They paid us to close our company up, and then we took all our contractors and we went to work with them full time when they went, and then the company got bought. And then fast forward, they needed someone to run the design office in Hong Kong. We had a design office in Carlsbad, so my brother ran the Carlsbad office. I ended up running the Hong Kong office. So I moved over there, and at first it was 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. I'd go back and forth, and I had an apartment over there, and I had an apartment in San Diego and in Carlsbad, because my son still lived in Carlsbad. And then it got to the point where it's just too hard. I didn't know. It was like the movie Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis when he doesn't
Yeah,
know he's a ghost, because you didn't
yeah,
know. You wake up and it's pitch black. You don't know where you are. You don't know what
yeah.
time it is, and nobody in Carlsbad knows where you're at because they think you're over in Hong Kong, and then so they're not calling you, and then people over in Hong Kong aren't calling you because they think you're in Carlsbad. So I finally made the decision to move over there full time, and they made the arrangement to fly my son and a companion. He was still young at the time, and I was divorced, so they would fly him and a companion over. They would pay for it anytime I wanted to fly back and forth. So I got to see him quite a bit, and then I could, like, if you were in my neighborhood, I'd go, "Jim, you want to go to Hong Kong?" And you fly over with Cole, and then you would go, "Yeah," you would drop my son off, and then you'd go on to Thailand, or you'd stay hang out with me for the week or whatever. But so I got to see him quite a bit, and dude, it was an amazing experience. It wasn't the real world over there,
Yeah.
because you're on an expat package. your house is paid for. So, and back then, this is back in 2006, 7, they're paying 5,000 a month for an apartment and down like in the heart of central Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I was like, where the escalators go, they cross over Queens Road.
Straight
I
up
was
the
like
middle.
right there. It was
Yeah.
just in the heart of it. And then traveling all over in Southeast Asia just for quick little trips, a couple hours to Thailand, a couple hours to, Borneo, or, up to China. And, it was amazing. It was amazing.
And was the need to
Yeah.
have you there based on that's where all the manufacturing was being done and you had to oversee
Yeah.
that as well? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was basically translating the designs that came from California to make sure that they worked up in the Hong Kong and then up at the factories. Because I always make the analogy, like if you designed a mouse, and this is back in the day when mouse still had a cord, and then you design this prototype at your place, you wrapped up the cord, you put it in a box, and you sent it off to the factory in China, you would get back this molded mouse with a molded cord
Okay.
all baked in.
What
So,
you said you wanted, yeah.
another yeah, they literally would translate it like that. We designed this basically the equivalent of an AT-AT, but think for action figures, but it was robotic, so it could walk on its own. And we said we wanted to be a troop carrier like an AT-AT, but we'd kind of make our own design for it. And I went up to the factory to look at it, and it was they put the action figures were on the outside of the troop carrier, and it's like, no, they're supposed to carry the figures inside. We didn't accommodate for space to put stuff inside. So things would literally get lost in translation like that. So
That's funny.
yeah,
Did you have to how fluent did you get in the language?
oh, not very. I wanted to learn Cantonese because that's the dialect that in
Yeah.
southern China for Hong Kong and that region, the So, but that's actually a harder language to learn. But none of my teammates, my local Hong Kong guys that worked on my team wanted to speak Cantonese. They wanted to speak English, and they would always tell me, "Mike, you should be learning Mandarin because that's what they speak up at the factory." But I never went down that road. I just got good enough. I called it my taxi cab Cantonese, Lido guy,
Yeah.
Bingso, just how to order drinks and, that kind of
You know,
thing.
if somebody's
So
cussing you out or something like that, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
How long were you over there?
Altogether about 4 years.
Wow.
And then we came back in 2010. I moved back to Carlsbad.
You, name dropped on a couple of the bigger projects and games and stuff like that you worked on. What are some of the others, even movies and things like that you got to touch? Because I think for me, that's just such a geeky, neat, wonderful,
Oh yeah,
amazing thing to be involved in terms of that level of Hollywood or that level of electronic gaming and stuff like that. What's some of the stuff that you've worked on that you're the most proud of?
for me, it's kind of a whole list. After working for Huawei at the toy company, I went up to work for Microsoft, and I was on 343 Studios. It was basically Halo, so I got to work with Master Chief and basically anything from vehicles to statues to comic books to novels to like board games, cool apparel. Like we were across all of that, and I got to work with the Halo team. Halo 4 was the big game that I was on during that time period, and then from there, I got an offer. My wife, I should backtrack a little bit. I met my wife in Hong Kong. All my friends in California thought she was Chinese because I met her in Hong Kong, but she's a Kiwi. That's why I'm in New Zealand now.
Got it.
And
Okay.
the goal was always when my son graduated high school, I'd go work for Weta Workshop and we'd live in New Zealand. And the job actually opened up this perfect position to head the consumer products team down there when I was up in Seattle. So, you don't look to give horse in the mouth. So I interviewed, got the job, and we went down to work at Weta Workshop. So that's Peter Jackson started with Richard Taylor. They did all the Lord of the Rings movies, won all the Oscars for that, and Hobbit. And now they've gone on to do like, Chappie and District 9. And these guys design amazing movies and production stuff, like everything from costumes, suits of armor. And you walk down the hallways and it's just floor to ceiling. It's props from all these movies. And being a movie guy, it's just you're in hog heaven. And
Yeah.
then I got to travel all over the world because we would do Comic Cons, like San Diego Comic Con. We'd have a big 40 by 70 booth of all the armor from the movies and all on display, and we'd sell the big statues and stuff. That was amazing. And then working at Activision on Call of Duty, working on that properties was awesome. Getting to collab with like New Era caps and Converse and Champion and just all the cool collabs. Then working up at Bungie on Halo, and the last career I was in was at Sony before I left, and working across product on there. And actually, it was kind of cool. I called up Chris and I said, "Dude, you're going to be famous." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "One of the characters I'm designing product for His name is General Saito. And at the time, the game wasn't out. So I'm like, dude, you got to keep this on the DL. So Chris, if you're a video game little geek and goes to Yote, he's like the main baddie, dude. General Saito. So I'm like, dude, you made it, Chris. You made it.
That is super cool. Are you a good big gamer yourself? I mean, this seems to me like the perfect excuse. Like, no, I got to play games. I'm getting better at the craft here. And you got to be good.
I like to play games when I was young, like when I was still before I got into the game industry. I played a lot of games. Like I used to joke around that I should put on my resume, mastered X-Wing versus TIE Fighter or Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, the old PC games,
Yeah.
And then, but I didn't play. I played when we were kids, and then the Atari and that kind of stuff. But when we got to college, it wasn't a thing at all. I was too busy with girls and having fun and parties. The only going back to another movie reference is, at the Campanile, dude. Forget swingers, dude. You know how when they would getting ready to go out, they're playing hockey and talking shit, and that was I watched that movie and I'm like, nah, dude, we did that. That was Campanile, dude. That was like, so it was like, again, a slice of life in the movies. But yeah, we do that stuff. That would about it.
Don't they blindside Gretzky and they're bleeding on the
ice?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a bitch, dude. Yeah. All that. But that, all the dialogue is straight from Campanile House, or fill in the blanks. But yeah, I played enough just to keep in touch. I would pick one game a year just to go down the rabbit hole and play, but just takes up a lot of time. But I needed to be able to talk shop, right? So I do that, and now I don't have an excuse. Yeah,
and how that whole realm works.
Yeah.
Well, my man, you did well enough at it to where you're one of the most recent guests here that's actually punched their ticket now, and you're on this retirement tour. You wear it well. Congrats for that. That's all something we're all trying to achieve too. It's got to feel pretty good to punch out at this point. And what are you guys going to do with it? Right now, you're down in New Zealand. You're talking about going to Bali in a couple of weeks. Is it a spin the wheel thing and then land there for a couple months and go somewhere else? Or what do you guys got mapped out?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we're going to do a slow travel. We're calling it slow travel. It's we're not going to blitz through and spend a week here and a week there. We're going to spend a month or so in each place and just chill. Just live like locals, explore local places, and just take it one day at a time, just try not to, because, I think how many people go on vacation and you get home and you need a vacation from your vacation. And we're just going to do Southeast Asia. So we're going to hit Bali, Hong Kong, Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and that'll take us all the way to the end of November. And we're going to come back here again. So then we're already starting to think about, okay, what about 27? We wanted to do Mexico and then hit the States and go visit friends and family, and then maybe on to Europe, but that's all up in the air right now. So we're with everything going on. So we're just going to ride this out for the next month or so, and then we'll see. So, it's funny. I think back to where I am now and where I was in college. There was days, but like I was so poor, I couldn't even pay attention, dude. That's part of the reason I should have a doctorate at San Diego State. It took me a long time to graduate, but just didn't know how to pay bills. I had jobs, but it just wasn't covering everything, and wondering where the next check's coming from. And I ended up getting a gig walking across campus wearing my San Diego State sweatshirt. This girl said, "Hey, you want to be on TV?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I went to a bunch of callbacks and auditions, and I ended up getting a Navy commercial. And it ended up being this kind of catch-22 where you couldn't do a SAG job unless you were in the Screen Actors Guild, but you can't get in the Screen Actors Guild unless you get the job. And it happened to be a thing. So they signed me up for the thing. There was a couple points where I almost didn't get it. One of them was we went down to Mexico all night and partied our butts off. And then I met a girl down there and I brought her back up to my place at Sunset Cliffs back when I was living with Koppemeyer and Marshall and Simon. And I thought, I'm just going to flag this last, call back and just hang out with her. And then Simon had the sock on the door. So I was out in the living room, and then Koppemeyer wakes up like an hour later. He's got ROTC and he's like, "Hey, good morning." And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to the audition. And thank God I did, dude. Cause that ended up, you ask like Beaker or Rago, any of those guys I lived with, like randomly we'd be watching the NBA and then "Bar the Hope, you are tomorrow." And I just 30 seconds of holding up a test tube, dude. It just saved my butt in college, dude.
I'll link to that in the show notes so guys can see it. And thank you for bringing it up, because I was going to ask if there were how those residuals are good for that. And
they were just they were random, but they worked, man. Yeah, they were. Simon and I called it pimping. So when one of those checks would come in, and when you're in college, a $3,000 check was huge, dude. So we'd go to Z Gallery and buy the halogen lamp or the Nagel print. And then you'd be poor again.
Yeah, there you go.
It'd be
Living
poor
it.
again until the next one came through, and then you'd be watching football or something, and then I still remember Rago going cha-ching just out of
Every
nowhere.
time it rolls out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And that was nothing more than just cruising across campus, and she's there
Just
on
walking across
a
campus.
talent
Yeah.
search.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look
And
at
then
that.
the other part of that too was went to a costume fitting. I'd never done any of this before. I went to a costume fitting and they said, just bring a suitcase of different clothes. So I brought suitcase with like sweaters and different pants and shorts and tank tops, and they look at it, and then the costume designer goes, okay, cool. This is great. That's all perfect. We'll see you the day of the shoot. So I show up the day of the shoot, and then she's like, where's all your clothes? And I said, well, no one told, I assumed that you guys would have the clothes. And they're like, and then they were ready to like kick me off the commercial because she was all mad. And he was like, this guy doesn't have any clothes. He didn't bring anything. And the director looks at me and takes off his denim shirt. It's like those long sleeve denim shirts, like a jean shirt. And he's like, here, put this on. So I put that on and he goes, all right, we're good to go. Let's go. And I'm like, it's just dumb. Just like Sweepy, like walking across the girders or crawling across the girders just without a clue.
You did everything you could to not get the gig and still got the gig.
I still got the gig. Yeah. Yeah. So to whoever that girl was, sorry, but this is more important.
Look at me now. You mentioned Simon and you had a couple of stories on him. Like I said, he was one of the more memorable guys that I remember in my pledge semester. Tell me a little about Simon and maybe connect a great story for your experience with him.
Sure. Yeah. Simon was awesome, dude. He was a English transplant. His mom met a guy in Marina del Rey or somewhere in Playa del Rey, something like that. And he and his younger brother grew up there, went to high school there, and then he came down. He was an amazing surfer, but I think he really ingratiated himself with the Southern California life and really into bodybuilding, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all that stuff. And he was awesome, dude. Always lifelong student. And he just got his MD like at 59 years old, dude. He's still just, but yeah, dude, he was an awesome roommate. And I think he learned just as much from me as I did from him, just like making him listen to Tom Petty and like different music and then all the Americanisms. His mom came to my mom's wedding. I've been to, like we became really good friends, and same with his younger brother, Robin. Simon is, if you've lived with Simon or know anything about Simon, he's a legend, and for a good reason, dude.
Okay.
And I think once girls find out about him, like we'd go to like what are the formals or the parties out in like Palm Springs or where we'd all at the hotel, and girls would want to see, they're like, we got to find out if this is true.
So what you're saying is the socks on the door were rather large.
They were giant tube socks. Yes.
Simon,
and
we're
when
coming
I say
for
giant,
you. Well, we got to get Simon on the show here.
Yeah.
We
and as well endowed as he was, I think his brother had him beat. His brother was an actor. We went to the Lyceum Theater. He was in a play. His brother's an actor. He does a lot of voiceover work. And Simon and I snuck burritos into the Lyceum Theater. If you've ever been there in San Diego, it's all like prim and proper theater.
Yeah.
We open up these burritos, all crinkling, and it's just all the wafting burrito smell in the whole theater. We're total noobs or rubes, whatever you want to call us. And then the play was called Equus, and I don't know if you're familiar with Equus, the story of Equus, but it's about this young guy who deals with horses and he kills a horse. And anyway, but he was the lead actor. His brother was lead actor, and there's a scene that was tastefully lit, and the actress and his brother were supposed to be nude on the stage, kneeling, facing each other, and it was dappled lighting. Try to be tasteful. Well, let's just put it this way. I don't think I've ever had the issue of having my junk hanging over stage front of stage over your thigh, dude. And dude, just in the audience, a couple of gasps, all these women going, oh, and dude, people are not laughing, but like, just like, oh shit.
It is a little shocking.
And yeah. And then that same play, one of the actors was supposed to be a horse, and he's like totally in character. And he doesn't realize how close he is to the stage, and he's on these little platform things, and he literally just tromps right off the stage. I remember this guy going, no! He just goes over like David Grohl and the Foo Fighters when he went over the stage.
Yeah.
It's just so many. Yeah, dude. Yeah. You'll have to ask Simon about it or ask some of the other guys, dude. They could back.
Okay. This has been a ton of fun. I got my stare into the flame questions. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Here you go. which is the house you love to hate the most?
It's funny. I've been listening to other guys talk about this, and I don't have a house that I love to hate. I'd have to say, I'd have to say Sigma Chi only because there's that famous spitting incident that cost us the IFC
Come on,
championship
tell it.
in football.
Tell it.
We were playing football with those guys, and they're getting a little chippy with us, and I think they were frustrated because we were just like, they couldn't get open. They couldn't do shit. And one of the guys just gave Chris Saito a cheap shot in the end zone. And I didn't even hesitate. I just went over to him, and I knew you couldn't like swing on a guy in that. You'd be instantly out and ejected and big trouble. So I just went up to him, and I just got in his face and just Bill Romanowski'd him and just loogied in his face, dude.
Right.
And just, I was so pissed. And football, I turned into a different person, man. It's just a whole different thing. So
Yep.
he's lucky that it's all he got. But again, no animosity, because it's like, dude, these guys got nothing on us, you know? I know a lot of the guys say the Sigma News, but
you got to protect the general.
yeah,
You got to protect the general.
Exactly. Yeah.
Word or phrase you picked up at EI that still rings in your head today?
Yeah, I have to say your title, man. It's not over yet, dude, for so many different reasons, you know? I mean, just when you think the party's over and you think you're done, that comes out when, you know, just as a philosophy in life, dude, it's not over, man. We're on a mission, dude. So like EYB is like obviously up there, dude. It's just like, it's so classic. But I think it's not over yet, dude. Just so good.
Love it. What active was the biggest dick to you while you were a pledge?
You know what? Like, honestly, I didn't have anybody fuck with me in the fraternity. It was almost like I was waiting for it, and that was when I was going to quit as a pledge, and no one ever did. Like, the worst I got was like, you know, you get all the pledges, you know, when you have your meeting with actives, it's like, oh, they go around the room and pick on everybody, and then, Gonzo, you think you're cool because you know actives. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, you know, that was it. I think, and I have nothing against Chris Condit, but I think one day he kind of like got into me for no reason about something in the pledge book or something didn't study or something. And I think we were at a volleyball game or something. And I just remember going, and I'm a very strong believer of this. It's like, dude, if I'm going to be your bro in the house, why are you going to act like this now? And I don't think anybody else ever even came close to that. But like Chris Condit, dude, he's not a bad guy. You know, he's just got like super serious, and it's like, dude, really? Come on, dude. Let's lighten up a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And that was it. I remember one time somebody wrote something in their pledge book, I drink, therefore I am, or something. It was one of our pledges. And so they brought us into the chapter house and they lined us up. And I remember maybe it was McGrory or a couple other guys just were kind of lacing into us. Go, you think this is what this fraternity's about? Drink, therefore I am. And then they handed Detingo this big bottle of vodka. It was just filled to the brim. He's like, drink this whole thing right now. Else you're out of this house. So Detingo grabs it and he starts chugging it. And I'm looking at him going, dude, I'd be out of here. And then so he just polishes it off. And then I want to say it was McGrory. It could have been somebody else, but he turns to us and he goes, if you think that was real alcohol, then you're in the wrong fucking place. This is not what we're about, you know, da-da-da-da. And I thought that was cool because it wasn't, I guess technically it would be hazing, but it wasn't hazing in my book. It was like a perfect example of like, this is not what we're about. Yeah, we drink our asses off, we party, but we're not here to shit on other people and belittle them and make them small. We're here because we want to all be brothers. And I know it was kind of a roundabout way, but that always stuck with me. That I wish I could remember who it was that did it, but I remember Detingo had to drink the bottle. And again, I was like, I always had a chip on my shoulder back then. So it wouldn't have taken much for me to be like, nope, I'm done. I don't need this shit, you know? And it was kind of a cool reinforcement of what this was all about.
I love it. That is really cool. With your vast knowledge of superheroes and superpowers, like you could have two superpowers. What would they be?
I don't know if it's a superpower, but I had a poster up in my room, my office, when my brother and I were working together. It was Deadpool, and it was like a speech bubble that said, common sense, so damn rare it's a superpower. And I think a lot of people don't have common sense, man. They go through life just going, and like smart people. Like I think Obama said it, you know, he talked about how you think you don't belong in a boardroom or at a table with all these like executives and presidents and leaders. Dude, you don't have no idea how dumb these fuckers are, you know? And I've always carried that through life. It's like, dude, I have more reason to be here than you do, and I will common sense my way around any of you. I feel like I can go to any room and talk about anything to anybody and find a connection. And to me, that's the superpower, you know?
I love that. That's great. More related superhero. And then I have a bonus question. More related superhero. In the Batman series of movies, who was the best Batman? Who played him the best?
Oh, I'm an OG dude, Adam West. Do I have to pick
Ooh,
a movie or can I go with the TV show?
no, I'll go with that. I'll take the TV show.
Yeah,
Adam's got a
yeah. I
unique
think
background. He was a interesting dude.
he was he and Adam West was he and I forget the Burt Ward. They were swinging 60s. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
literally, dude. But
Yeah.
if I had to pick a movie, I'd have to go Christian Bale.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they did that one in Hong Kong. I thought he was pretty good. I liked him in that one
He was
too.
kind of the ultimate
But
tough
I'm
guy
old school,
Batman,
dude.
right? He was kind of
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
ultimate tough guy Batman.
Yeah, yeah, but if all of the Batmans, I got a picture. I should send you the picture. I got, and again, because I'm in the entertainment licensing space, of me on the Bat phone in the original Batmobile, dude.
Oh, kick out. Yeah, send that if you can. I'll drop that in
I'll
there.
send it to you when we're done. Yeah.
And then your bonus is, I know, as evidenced by your shirt there, that you are a big lover of tiki culture.
Yes.
How did that come to be? Why? And what would you recommend to someone who is tiki curious?
It started a long time ago. And in fact, I think one of the pictures I sent to you was our first apartment at Sunset Cliffs with Koppemeyer, Marshall, and Simon. We literally decked that whole place out with that camo netting all over the ceiling with their like pitch ceilings. And we made our own like, tribal mask, and we had bamboo on the wall. And it started there, but I really kind of like did a deep dive when I was researching a racing game in the late 90s, early 2000s. And there was this whole scene with artists. It was a magazine called Juxtapose, and artist Robert Williams, Ag. These guys were all like, Robert Williams was the original creative director for Big Daddy Ed Roth. And so we were kind of going down this rabbit hole of style. And you grew up in Southern California, so you know all the gooky architecture, the gas stations with the swept roofs.
Yeah.
Those were all based on like these big tribal huts and chiefs, the chiefs' huts, and the kind of that the thatched buildings. And so I kind of, having the design and architectural background, just went down this rabbit hole and researched it all. And there just happened to be this resurgence of tiki at the time. So I really kind of went down that rabbit hole, and then Tiki Curious became Tiki Obsessed. In fact, my Tiki Gonzo is like that's my Gmail, account. And I love the escapism, and I love the crafting of the cocktails and the story. And like Jungle Cruise I love the Jungle Cruise. I bought a house in Carlsbad, the last house I had before I moved overseas in Carlsbad. I literally went to Jungle Cruise, picked out all the plants, philodendrons, bamboo, and made my backyard, had a spool, like a spa pool, kind of just to do that. I had tiki people over for tiki drinks. I'd mix all the drinks up, and then just turned into this thing. Wherever I went, I would find the tiki bar in that town. And now it's become this passion of mine where you name a city, I can name a tiki bar. I can tell you where to go. But if you're tiki curious, like in Southern California, there's 2 new tiki bars that are called the Lucky Tiki. One's in West Hollywood, and one's in Highland Park. Go to the Highland Park one. It's a little drive, but that one's awesome. Tiki Tea is the original tiki bar, or the oldest tiki bar in LA besides Tonga Hut in the Valley. And I just saw something online. I was just there when I was in December. It's right down the street from Quentin Tarantino's movie theater that he owns.
Okay.
And then he goes in there a lot of time. It's not the most like from a visual standpoint, the most like in-depth tiki bar, but it's OG tiki bar. Ray's Mistake is amazing. Yeah, dude, I love tiki. It's escapism, man. You go in there and it could be Milwaukee in the winter. Your wife's yelling at you, you can't pay the bills, and you walk in there and you're in the South Pacific, and
a Scorpion Bowl. And now I got a Scorpion Bowl.
Scorpion Bowl, Mai Tais. Oh, yeah, dude, I love it, dude. San Diego crafting, in Little Italy, there's an amazing one called False Idol. It's attached to Craft and Commerce. That's a top tier one. Yeah.
It's a secret door kind of place. You got to know the password and all that.
It was. You used to literally walk through the walk-in fridge and you'd see like, those plastic bins full of heads of lettuce. And then you go through another door and then you're in this like cave wall that's like straight out of Pirates of the Caribbean, and just tons of Japanese float lamps and carvings all over, and the best drinks in town, dude. It's just amazing.
Love it.
Yeah. Hit me up separately if you want to know where to go for it. If you're in town, I have industry friends. They just all know now. They're like, hey, I just landed in Chicago. Where should I go? 3 dots and a dash, and that's where they go.
I think there's a guidebook or something like that in here for you.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Fens. Yeah. I would love to do a podcast on that, on movies. I love movies, just to tie all that together, dude. So yeah. Yeah.
You are
Anybody wants to get a tiki
international,
drink, let me know.
the international man of mystery over here, my man. Congrats. Thank you for the time. It's a lot of fun and stirs up so many great memories. I'm gonna go fish out a Hawaiian shirt, I think, and lay down and kind of just try and bring back all those Mango Bango times and experiences with everybody, and have you to thank for a lot of those great memories. So very well done, bro. Appreciate it.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you for doing this. I think it's amazing that you're doing this. I know it started with that funny drunken call from a tiki bar, by the way,
Yep.
but I'm so glad that you're picking up the mantle because these stories need to be told. This brotherhood is special, dude. We need to make a movie about this. We need to immortalize it. I love all these guys. I love it's just, we're so lucky, dude. We're so lucky to have this. And I think it's great that you're kind of carrying that torch. So keep it up, man.
It's a we thing. This is all about us, and I appreciate everybody that comes on and wants to share the time. I got a couple guys that are like, "No, man, I'm not that interesting," and all. I'm like, "Bullshit! Everybody wants to hear
No,
about
that's
everybody."
everybody's because you're going to triangulate all the stories. Like you put a Mike Jackson on, you put a Kenny White on, you're going to hear a whole different
Yeah,
perspective, and there's little overlaps. Like guys like Keith Harris, the Cobra, the Doctor. Those guys. They have so many stories to tell, and they have their own unique bent on it, and they're just unique characters, dude. It's just guys like Steak down in Australia. It's just so many people that have unique stories. I think everybody has an angle to tell. Guys like Mike Crisp. I know he's not as plugged in anymore, but man, what an amazing, funny guy,
yep.
sincere guy he is. Just so many people to interview, dude.
Well, and you just named 3 guys that I want to. Those are kind of next on my hit list. I want to use these episodes to say, okay, who are you calling out that I need to get a hold of to come
Yeah,
on next? So Kenny, Cobra, we're coming for you, and
good.
we're gonna keep
Get Kenny
these
White,
stories
yeah,
out
and
there.
then yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm just
So
afraid Kenny's going to show up naked. Like I'm really worried about that guy spending more time out of clothes
fingers
than
crossed.
in clothes. Yeah, you never know. The first episode where we've had to use the little black bars and things like that. But no, bro, good stuff. Safe travels out there. You're going to some really
Yeah,
fun
thank
and
you.
interesting places, but someone can be a little shady sometimes. So I know you're going to keep your wits about you and travel safe and enjoy that retirement, my man.
Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed this. Looking
All right,
forward
bro.
to it.
All right, we'll talk soon, okay?
Cheers.
It's Not Over Yet is a production of EYB Enterprises. This episode is brought to you by EA Sports. It's in the game. The host of It's Not Over Yet is Jim Miller. Executive producers are David Cisneros, Mike Gonzales, and Chuck Long. If you'd like to be notified of every time we drop a new episode of It's Not Over Yet, simply go to itsnotoveryetpodcast.substack.com, drop in your email, and you'll get a note every time we drop a new episode. Thanks for coming out.